Good morning, good evening to one and all. On behalf of the Tobacco Control Section of the Union and the section officers, I thank each and every one of you for joining us today for our webinar today to observe the World No Tobacco Day 2024. We are honored to have with us today Dr. Stan Glantz, Founding Director of the UCSF Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education, Dr. Mark, Director, Tobacco Control Research Branch in the Division of Cancer Control, National Cancer Institute, Dr. Kirsten from World Health Organization, Geneva, Switzerland, Dr. Manuja, who's a senior lecturer in the Department of Public Health in the Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelania from Sri Lanka. Thank you, Chair and speakers, for joining us today. I also welcome each and every one of you who has joined today with us to observe World No Tobacco Day. The theme of World No Tobacco Day 2024 is protecting young people from tobacco industry interference. The industry influences and interferes with the young people, spending around $8 billion a year on various forms of advertising. The industry targets youth for a lifetime of profits, creating a new wave of addiction. Children are using e-cigarettes at higher rates than adults in all regions, and globally, an estimated 37 million youth aged 13 to 15 years, they use tobacco. Without any further ado, now I request Dr. Rakesh Gupta, who's the Vice Chair of the Tobacco Control Section of the Union, to please welcome our chair for the webinar. Over to you, sir. Sir, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
So I welcome our chair, Dr. Stan Glantz. He is the founding director of the UCSF, Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education of the CTCRE. He is globally recognized expert on e-cigarettes. Dr. Glantz continues to conduct research on a wide range of topics, ranging from health effects of the e-cigarettes and second-hand smoke, with particular emphasis on the cardiovascular system, to the efficacy of different tobacco control policies. He is a mentor to many in public health working for tobacco control. He was one of the first people to argue that controlling youth access to tobacco products was not an effective tobacco control strategy, and to identify the importance of young adults, not just teens, as targets for the tobacco industry, and efforts of at tobacco cessation and tobacco use prevention. So thank you, sir, for joining. So Garima, over to you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for the introduction. And I request Professor Stan to please deliver the keynote address for the webinar.
Okay, so can you all see me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I didn't think I was doing a keynote. I thought I was just making some introductory comments. And and looking we have a wonderful set of speakers from all over the world. And I think that as we look at the current state of the tobacco market globally, some things are new and some things have never changed. The new things are these relatively new products, the electronic cigarettes, heated tobacco products, pouches, and a variety of other forms of delivering nicotine, which are haven't been around for 100 years the way cigarettes and spit tobacco have been. But the industry's basic strategies of building their future on youth, of using their political and economic power to try to block and interfere with effective public health regulation, efforts to confuse people about what the scientific evidence is, both for the effects of advertising and marketing in terms of attracting and holding new customers, the addictiveness of nicotine and the dangers of their products is nothing new. The one thing, though, which is different from most of my experience, which goes back longer than I care to admit, is that there is a loud minority within the public health community who continues to think these new products represent harm reduction. Now, you know, often the debate is framed as, are you in favor of harm reduction or not? And the fact is, I don't know anybody working in any area of public health who is not trying to reduce harm. The question is, do these new products reduce harm? And the answer, I think, as we learn more and more about them, is no. They increase harm by expanding the market, by bringing in low-risk youth who probably would never initiate nicotine use with traditional cigarettes. And as we learn more and more about the biological effects, e-cigarettes seem to be nearly as dangerous as cigarettes. And the problem is that the existence of this relatively small group of people based mostly, but not exclusively in England, creates a background, a substrate of controversy that the industry, working through its third parties, particularly the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World and other industry propaganda arms, is able to spread confusion and leverage their views against, I think, with the majority views that these products are a bad thing. And that message, the e-cigarette advocates, I think they're weakening as more and more evidence develops how dangerous these products are. But I've just been struck at how impervious they are to the new evidence as it's developing. That's not the central focus of these talks. They're looking more at specifically how the industry is going after youth globally, but that provides the sort of background context for the ongoing debates. So with that, I think we can just move on to the one other thing about questions. We've decided that we'll have all of the presentations first, and then people can use the raise your hand function at the end if we have time, and then we'll call on people to ask their questions, but we'll do that after all of the presentations. So with that, is Mark Paris-Angola here yet?
No, he'll be joining a bit late, so I think we can go ahead with Dr. Kirsten.
Okay, so I've worked with Dr. Kirsten Shetty for years on the issue of smoking in the movies and other media. And, you know, she's an important leader in these issues globally. And I'll just turn the screen over to her.
Thank you very much, Stan. Yeah, it's still not possible for me to share my screen. If you could please enable. In the meantime, let me thank you for inviting me to present in this webinar. It's a great pleasure. And I will be...
Dr. Garima, can you please introduce her?
Yeah, please
Sure.
enable screen
Thank
share.
you. Thanks, Dr. Kirsten, for joining us today. She's a medical officer with the World Health Organization in the Health Promotion Department at the headquarters, Geneva, Switzerland. She has been providing global scientific and technical leadership in matters related to capacity building and tobacco control. And in her first professional life, she was a medical doctor in psychiatry and joined WHO in 2004 after finishing her MPH at Harvard. Thank you, Dr. Kirsten. Thank you for joining. And we can see your slides. Requesting you to please go full screen mode. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Garima. Thank you very much, Stan. So yeah, in the next 10 minutes, I want to talk about this topic, what you see here on the screen. Why is the tobacco industry targeting youth? You see here in the background a poster of this year's World No Tobacco Day campaign. And I will show throughout the presentation a lot of visuals from this campaign this year. So this question, why is the tobacco industry targeting youth, could be answered actually just in 2 sentences. The first sentence is because tobacco products kill half of their users. And the second sentence is because the absolute majority of tobacco users start tobacco use before they are adults. And this is the reason why the tobacco industry is targeting youth. And just to make this a little bit more visual, this number that we often hear, more than 8 million people die of tobacco use. You see here the number 60 million. This is the actual number of people that die each year from all causes. This is road accidents, malaria, HIV/AIDS, non-communicable diseases. All deaths together are 60 million. And when you then hear the number that 8 million of these deaths are attributable to tobacco use, this really becomes such an important issue. And this is why this is also such an important topic for us at the World Health Organization. So the secret is out. It's no longer a secret. The tobacco industry is targeting a new generation because otherwise they would lose profits by killing their customers. And we have been using this in our campaign this year because we want young people to really understand that they are being manipulated by the tobacco industry, that they are being recruited as new consumers. And we want to show how much the tobacco industry really spends on tobacco marketing. And this number that you see here on the screen, 23 million, is just per day. And it's just for one country. It's just numbers from the US that we have on this. So they will stop at nothing to get new consumers. They will usually use the traditional media. So this is newspaper, print media. This is also outdoor advertising. And the industry is using these media channels in countries that have not yet closed these channels. And in other countries that have banned tobacco advertising and promotion on these classic media channels, they will use social media. And even countries they have banned promotion of tobacco products, the tobacco industry will just either circumvent or just ignore these bans and will still try to reach the population with their marketing tactics. Stan had mentioned before that we have worked together on some papers on how tobacco product placement is used also in films and in media. And so we have used this also in some of our campaigns. And here you see the slogan, "Smoking on screen kills in real life." And we have numbers from 2022, where in the most popular streaming shows on Netflix and other screening platforms, nearly 25 million young people were reached with this tobacco use on screens. I already started to discuss a little bit on social media. And yeah, so social media influencers are paid to show the products. We have probably everybody who has children in teenage years knows that Children spend a lot of time with their mobile phones in their hands, looking at TikTok, Snapchat, and yeah, a lot of social media influencers. There we have data that over 100 hashtags are associated with tobacco companies, and they have been viewed with this shocking number of more than 25 billion times around the world in these years 2007 to 2016, where we have data. Here is a little GIF that I want to show from this year's campaign. We know that the tobacco industry used to, or still is giving free samples to recruit new users. They do this, for example, at music festivals or at other sponsored events. And this is also happening now with new products, with e-cigarettes, and with heated tobacco products, and with nicotine pouches. Another important marketing feature is the design of these new products. So nowadays, it's really sometimes difficult to even spot an e-cigarette, because some of these devices look like markers or they look like little toys. For teachers, for example, in classrooms, it's sometimes almost impossible to see if one of their students is using these products. So these design features are targeting young people, children, and young adults. And then we have the problem also of flavors. There are more than 60,000 flavors available for e-cigarettes, also for tobacco products, but mostly for e-cigarettes. And these products are like dragon blood, creme brulee, vanilla ice cream. And the tobacco and nicotine industry, they are having this, what Stan already mentioned, this harm reduction narrative, that these products are so important for populations, so that tobacco users that are not able to quit can switch to these products, or that they can quit with these products. But this is a lie, because these products are targeted at young people who don't even use cigarettes or tobacco products yet. And we really emphasize this in this year's campaign. We also did some testing, some message testing with young people in 9 different countries in all of our regions. And we found that young people are very interested in environmental topics. So we also emphasized in this campaign that e-cigarettes are so harmful for the environment. With the single-use plastics that they are, and also with the batteries, especially for single-use vapes, that these batteries just fill in landmines and they are toxic waste. CSR, corporate social responsibility, is something that the tobacco industry has been using for decades. And they do this because they also know that young people care a lot about environmental topics. So they use these cleanup messages in their marketing tactics, and want to convince the population that they are responsible and part of the society. And we want to really put the torchlight on the fact that their products are killing the environment, not only because they produce all of this plastic waste, but also because a lot of trees, 600 million trees, are cut down every year to make either room to grow tobacco or to cure tobacco, which is still done by burning trees. Another topic that we found from our product testing is important for young people is equity and human rights topics. And this is why we also show that a lot of child labor is used in tobacco growing, tobacco farming, and tobacco production. Important also to note that the harmful effects of shisha and smokeless tobacco is very much underestimated. So we always try in our campaigns to show that these products are as harmful as well. Probably no surprise, we are very proud to have the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control as a way to save lives. If the articles in the FCTC are implemented by countries, we can protect children from the tactics of the tobacco industry, because in the FCTC, we have a complete ban on tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship, and also the protection of public health policies from the interference by the tobacco industry. I know we have not a lot of time. Maybe we can share the slides later. We also translated in WHO the FCTC into the most important measures to reduce tobacco use, the Empower measures that you see here on the screen. I can share some data maybe in our Q&A later, how the world is doing in adopting these Empower measures. The good news is at least tobacco use prevalence and also the number of tobacco users in the world is declining. But this might also be a reason why the tobacco and nicotine industry is getting more aggressive at their marketing tactics. So we are doing a good job in reducing tobacco use, but we also have some really important battles to still win. One new publication I wanted to highlight, it's a new publication on restricting digital marketing, because it's so important for countries to now that the digital media space is so occupied by tobacco and nicotine industries, that countries have the tools in their hand to react to this new trend. And you probably also know at the latest Conference of Parties, COP10 in Panama, the parties adopted in a new addition to Article 13 guidelines. Key messages. The tobacco industry is trying still to reach youth via traditional marketing channels, but has also expanded to new marketing channels, including cross-border digital marketing channels. There is a lack of policies in a lot of countries to protect children, and governments have to do more, especially on tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship to protect their youth. We call on this year's World No Tobacco Day to youth to call out to their governments to ask to be protected by comprehensive bans, and also for youth groups to organize themselves, to show their protest on the streets. So on our campaign website, I share the link here, there is a toolkit for young children all over the world and for youth organizations, how they can get organized and show their protest against the tobacco and nicotine industry. That's it so far from my side. Handing back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kirsten. Thank you for highlighting the various tactics that the industry uses and also the call for action, and also sharing with us the latest publication from the WHO that we have. There are a few comments and questions in the chat. I would request Dr. Stan to please guide, should we take them now or should we take them during the Q&A session?
Do we have time to take a few now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, I'm just looking through the chat here. I don't see any questions in the chat. Increasing. So, Fada Muhammad put a comment in about taxes. Do you want to elaborate on that comment?
So there's a comment in the chat, Dr. Kirsten, that fortunately they increased the taxes for cigarettes in GCC, but they allow different types of vape to enter our countries.
Yes. A lot of countries still struggle with regulating e-cigarettes. And I think part of this problem is also that this nicotine industry has been quite successful with confusing this harm reduction narrative, like Professor Glantz already mentioned, this narrative that these products are important for adult tobacco users to quit. And if that's the case, then why don't make them available in pharmacies and without these flavors? So a lot of countries, I think, are still confused by this harm reduction narrative, and we hope that we can help clarify and support countries in taking these important measures to protect their population, and especially youth, from becoming addicted to these new products. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kirsten.
If I could just add something, one of the comments just came in that said India has banned e-cigarettes and other electronic nicotine delivery systems. About 30 or 40 countries have banned these products. And the bans actually work. If you look at the levels of use of e-cigarettes and other electronic nicotine delivery systems in the countries with bans, it's much, much lower than in places like the United States and England, which have more permissive policies. So implementing and enforcing bans isn't perfect, but it really does help quite a lot. The other thing, just to reemphasize, and we published a paper 2 or 3 months ago where we looked at the association between e-cigarette use and actual disease. And we found for several diseases, including cardiovascular disease, stroke, and metabolic disorder, that e-cigarettes were just as dangerous as cigarettes. And so I think it's very important in dealing with the industry's claims about harm reduction, excuse me, to point out that these products actually don't reduce harm. And the harm reduction argument is central to the industry's effort to get them taxed at a lower rate and to get other permissive policies. And those claims are just simply not true. So why don't we move on to the next speaker now?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Kirsten and Professor Glantz for those responses. Now we'll have another presentation from Dr. Manuja. I'll request Dr. Sanchika to please put up the introductory slide for Dr. Manuja.
There is an issue. Let me see. Is it visible now, Garima?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manuja, for joining us today. She is a senior lecturer and head of department in the Department of Public Health, Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. Her research interests include tobacco control, alcohol, and other drugs. She's also interested in monitoring tobacco industry interference. She has various awards and fellowships to her credit, including the Vice Chancellor's Award for the contribution towards the research development in the university in the year 2017. I request Dr. Manuja to take over from here and make the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, Garima. So I would first start sharing my slides. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and my slides are visible too.
Yes.
Is the presentation mode visible?
Yes.
Okay. So the topic I wanted to talk about today is on social media, the challenges countries like us, the lower middle income countries, without much technology to our credit and much money to spend on improving this technology. Where are we and what options do we have? So to present my case, I would like to take the case study of flavored cigarettes in Sri Lanka, because currently there's an interesting case study going on flavored cigarettes ban in Sri Lanka. For example, in this screen, you see a screenshot of Dunhill digital video made by the media agency called Extend Productions and uploaded in 2021 in their YouTube channel. And this is their ending slogan, "Gentlemen, this is taste." And it clearly indicates it's about flavored cigarettes. Mind you, Sri Lanka has banned flavored cigarettes from 2016. And we have prohibited tobacco advertisements, sponsorship, and promotion in all media, including internet, from our NAT Act in 2006. So, despite all of that, you see the audacity of both these industries, tobacco industry as well as the digital media industry, to act like this and openly violating the rules of this land. So there is a court case currently going on. Actually, NATA seized a warehouse of the tobacco company that stored flavored cigarettes in Sri Lanka, and they sued the tobacco company because flavored cigarettes was banned from 2016. Last year, in around October, November, there was this huge controversy because NATA went and did this after 7 years of the act being enacted. They tried to implement it, and they got sued, and they won the case. And this was the letter the tobacco company sent to their retailers, dated November 23rd, saying that November 17th, saying that they are going to withdraw flavored cigarettes from the market. Their main argument was actually the cigarette or our act says flavored tobacco is banned. Their argument was the tobacco is not flavored. There is a flavor containing capsule in the cigarette. So they are not violating the law. So then they appealed to the Court of Appeal, and they wrote to the Attorney General asking them to withhold implementation of the court order until the appeal court takes up the case. And confidentially, they write in local language to the retailers to go on selling their product. So when you talk about laws, having policies, having restrictions, prohibitions, in countries like ours, we do have all this stuff sometimes. Still, our authorities, our authorized officers are facing quite big challenges in implementing them. And this is a screenshot from the most widely available supermarket chain in Sri Lanka. Again, very big conglomerate, John Keys Holding supermarket chain. And you see all the flavored cigarettes are available online to buy from the supermarket chain. This was from the May. And we also have evidence that all these cigarettes are available everywhere, in Colombo and outside. And if you talk about, how digital marketing, digital media platforms contribute to this issue. So if you want to, this is a simple search I did in YouTube, because what we see in Sri Lanka is there's lots of music videos, presenting stuff, attracting youth and kids via YouTube videos. And these are the, normal YouTube videos when you search for menthol cigarettes in Sri Lanka, and you see how they promote and normalize this. And this downhill digital video appears in this search. And how Sri Lanka Customs destroys cigarettes by handing it over to the Ceylon Tobacco Company also. Okay, so, when you look at how things function in our part of the world, it's quite different and it's quite challenging than in developed countries where when there's a policy, when there's a law, it would be implemented. And if it is not implemented, there's definitely going to be accountable institutions and persons that would be accountable to enforce and implement these laws. Many content promoting cigarettes as well as flavored cigarettes to youth. And these are the shorts, YouTube shorts, targeting a younger crowd than, who can't contain their attention span for longer videos. The shorts are intended to those crowds, adolescents, teenagers. And this is all the flavored cigarettes, different flavors, different devices, vapes, e-cigarettes, all are prohibited in Sri Lanka. They are not supposed to be in our market. And where do they get access to this? I mean, you can't buy them in supermarkets. You can buy flavored cigarettes, but you can't buy e-cigarettes or vapes in supermarkets. Where do they sell these things? Again, via digital media platforms. They have Facebook groups, they have online other chat groups, WhatsApp groups, where they deal and trade this equipment. So it's quite challenging to actually to control the trade, and it's not only about promotion and influence and interference for public opinion and policies. It's also the trade, where it largely happens via digital media platforms in Sri Lanka. Electronic cigarettes, vaporizers. So my main message I wanted to give, and the point I wanted to raise is like, we do have policies, we do have laws. Implementing those, especially against a company that has annual income more than our country's GDP, is quite challenging. Especially when the legal systems, the authorities, the official systems are not strong enough to withhold the influence and interference of all these forces and stakeholders dealing with them. And it's no longer only about promotion and advertisements. The trade is also happening via these platforms, and we need to look at that aspect as well. How to stop, how to regulate online trade, or how to regulate this informal networking, almost, to the level of illicit drug networks that happens openly via social media platforms. And I mean, it's obvious that we can do many things. Unlike, fake Instagram accounts or fake Snapchat accounts where they promote and glamorize use. These trading groups have their account numbers, have their phone numbers, they have their admins, and some of these are listed companies. You can trace them and track them and regulate them if you want. So I think we should look at this aspect, and I hope as a region we take up this issue so that governments can, help each other and talk about this issue and how to regulate and prevent illegal access to this equipment via digital media platforms. That's all I have to say, Garima. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Manuja, for sharing with us the challenges and the solutions with respect to the influence and the interference that takes place through the social media platforms. Over to you, Professor Glantz, for your comments.
Well, I think this is a very clear presentation that really outlines the challenges of the digital marketing and, the continued bad behavior of these companies and basically ignoring laws. I think it also points to the difficulty of restricting marketing just to kids. And I think that you need to be moving toward prohibiting the products entirely, because that sort of makes the marketing at least more difficult. Let me just double check. I didn't see, there are some useful comments in the chat, but I don't see any questions. So let's move on to the next speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Glantz and Dr. Manuja, for joining us today and sharing your insights. With this, we'll move towards our next presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, we are happy to have with us Dr. Mark Parscandola, who's the director from the Tobacco Control Research Branch in the Division of Cancer Control and Population Sciences, National Cancer Institute, US. He has received his doctorate in philosophy of science from Cambridge University and Masters of Public Health degree in epidemiology from Johns Hopkins University. Also, he currently oversees a research portfolio with a focus on global tobacco control, smokeless tobacco use, and implementation science. He has served as an Embassy Science Fellow and expert advisor on tobacco control and air pollution and health at the US embassies in Beijing, China, and Poland. We welcome you, Dr. Mark, in our webinar today and request you to share your thoughts on youth and tobacco use findings from global surveys with an emphasis on Southeast Asia. Over to you.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here, and I apologize for the reordering of the order of presentations here, but anyway, appreciate everyone's flexibility here, and I'm glad to be here with you. So I'm going to share my if you're sharing.
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay, you'll share from your end. Okay, great. You got my slide. Okay, great. Thank you. So yes, next slide, please. So I just wanted to share this slide because most of the data I'm going to be sharing comes from the Global Youth Tobacco Surveys, which is really the primary sort of source we have for particularly large comparisons in youth trends in youth tobacco use around the world. And although there are many smaller surveys and studies within particular countries or at the city or community level around tobacco use, the Global Youth Tobacco Survey is unique in that it provides kind of a consistent mechanism and standardized set of questions and methodology that are applied across many different countries. And so it allows for the kinds of comparisons in trends over time and across countries and regions. There are, though, a number of gaps in that not every country has done the Global Youth Tobacco Survey, or it may have been a number of years since the last survey was done. So we don't necessarily have current data from all countries through this. Previous slide, please, with the map. I'm just going to show this map. Was put together for the Tobacco Atlas, kind of highlights sort of variation in prevalence of cigarette smoking among 13 to 15-year-olds, which is the primary target for the Global Youth Tobacco Survey. And you can see there are the sort of darker red spots are spots with higher use. So see particularly in South America and Southeast Asia and Europe, there are some spots that stand out. I would note also, of course, when you look at boys versus girls, there are substantial differences. So, for example, in South America, tobacco use is actually higher in some countries among girls than boys. But in Asia, for example, or in the Eastern Mediterranean region, tobacco use in youth is and adults is much higher among men and boys. Next slide, please. So the Global Youth Tobacco Survey is not done on a sort of regular basis in every country. So, but we can, so there's a limited ability to look at trends, but by now the survey has been done across many countries at least a couple of time points. So we can look at some broad trends. And here, this chart shows trends by region, comparing surveys that were done in the 2000s versus in the 2010s, and to see what change there is. In general, the good news is that in most parts of the world, tobacco use is decreasing among teens, 13 to 15 years old. Although you'll note here actually that for Southeast Asia is the one region that shows a slight increase actually over that time period, which is particularly concerning. So this slide here highlights tobacco use trends in U.S. youth under the National Youth Tobacco Survey 2011 to 2018. I wanted to show this, even though it's U.S. focused, because it does show an example of one of the trends I think we're seeing in many places now. So although, as I mentioned, we are seeing in most countries a decrease over time in youth tobacco use, there are other factors, other trends that complicate the picture. So you'll see here the dark blue line that's decreasing shows a decrease in cigarette smoking among youth from over 10% to about 3% now, which is so that's a substantial decrease. But at the same time, you can see the lighter blue or green line in the middle on this chart is rising, and that is e-cigarette use. So while cigarette use has been decreasing among youth, we've seen an increase in e-cigarette use. And what that means is overall, when you look at overall tobacco use, there actually has not been a change over that time period. It's been pretty much flat. So so it's important to be looking at use by specific product to understand these trends as well. Next slide, please. So there was a recent study that looked at changes in tobacco product use among students through the Global Youth Tobacco Surveys over several years in 34 countries where data was available. There were only, I think, 10 here where there were data on e-cigarette use at 2 time points. Because again, this is relatively new that e-cigarette use has really taken off. And so we don't necessarily have multiple iterations of the Global Youth Tobacco Survey in many countries yet showing e-cigarette use. But for those countries where this data was available, pretty much all of them, that is 9 of the 10, with the exception of Iraq, showed an increase in e-cigarette use over that, over time. So another way to look at this is, in addition to looking at current use of e-cigarettes, the surveys also look at awareness and awareness of e-cigarettes. So that's kind of exposure to marketing and advertising. So if you ask teenagers or children about their awareness of e-cigarette products, that tends to correlate with ever use of e-cigarettes. So we find that, that in countries where awareness of e-cigarettes is higher among youth, use also tends to be higher. And this may be because these products are being increasingly marketed in those countries. They're more available. This isn't necessarily, a cause and effect relationship, but certainly there are some common factors here that are driving awareness and use. Next slide, please. Okay, so and also if we look at awareness and use of e-cigarettes by region, I wanted to point out here that particularly CIRO, we're particularly focused here on the Southeast Asia region. We see that awareness and ever use are actually relatively high compared to other regions, and in fact, almost as high as in Europe, which shows the highest levels of awareness, ever use, and current use of e-cigarettes. So I think again, this is something to be concerned about as well. That e-cigarettes are prevalent and having an impact in the zero region. And so this is an important trend to be looking at. Next slide. So I think we've already heard about point of sale display of cigarettes. Just highlighting here that this is one of the factors that looking at particularly with youth tobacco use is we often see cigarettes being displayed near sweets and snacks or at areas where children are likely to be exposed to them. This contributes to their sort of awareness and potential interest in trying these products. So that can drive experimentation and use. And next slide, please. And then I also just wanted to note that, we should also, in looking at these trends, it's also important to be looking at what the trajectory is of youth who are using tobacco products. Do they continue to use them, or are they making quit attempts? And if so, are they successful? So many adolescents who currently use tobacco products report wanting to quit. And this is also kind of a unique period in life for youth where they're experimenting, trying new things. But their tobacco use is often also still kind of unstable at this point. So they may be using tobacco products in more social situations, not necessarily on a daily basis. So there's actually an opportunity to intervene as well. And so just wanted to highlight there are a number of resources out there for cessation, for targeted at teens to help them to quit smoking. So I think this is another important area to be thinking about as well. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mark, for sharing insights from Southeast Asia. Those are very helpful, and thank you for joining also for today. Over to Professor Glantz. For any comments?
Just to reiterate what I'd said before, I think what you see in Mark's presentation is typical of the world, and showing that e-cigarettes, far from representing harm reduction, have really expanded the nicotine addiction market, particularly among youth and young adults. And so the narrative that the presence of e-cigarettes in the market is reducing the harm of tobacco is just, especially if you look at the effects on kids and young adults, it's just not true. And rather than engaging in that debate, I think people need to just reiterate over and over and over again that the industry's claims in this area of harm reduction are just not true, that these products are making the tobacco epidemic worse.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Glantz, for your comments. Before we move ahead with our next presentation, I'll request everyone to please switch on your videos so that we can have a group photograph. I'll request Dr. Sanchika to please take a few screenshots.
Dr. Sanchika, have you taken the snapshots?
Okay.
Done, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchika. Now I request Dr. Pinpin, our program secretary of Tobacco Control Section, to please introduce our next speaker for the webinar and take the session forward. Over to you, Dr. Pinpin.
Thank you. And to make an introduction of Dr. Lakis.
Dr. Pinpin, your voice is cracking up. I think there is some network issue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, but
Okay.
your voice was cracking up in between.
Yeah, I would suggest that you have limited bandwidth. I would suggest stopping your video and so we can, that all the bandwidth can go to your voice.
Yeah, you can stop your video. So that would be better, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I would like to make a brief introduction of Dr. Rakesh Gupta, and he's the president and director of Public Health Strategic Institute of Public Health Education and Research, and he's also the vice chair of Tobacco Control Section of the Union, and he's a deputy director of NC Director and director of Chemical Examiner Lab Governmental in Padimba, Chalagraph, and held many awarded, including the WHO award in 2015, World Non-Tobacco Day, and awards for extremely service of the medical profession by SBI in 2018, and a series of great awards and achievements has gotten. And the presentation today is about the tobacco industry interference in the promotion of new emerging nicotine tobacco products. Dr. Gupta, please.
So thanks a lot, Penpen, for the generous introduction. So I'll be talking about the new emerging tobacco products and how the tobacco industry interference is there in promoting these products. So Dr. Kirsten, Dr. Manuja, Dr. Mark, they all told a bit about how the tobacco industry is promoting such products. So the transnational tobacco companies in almost 2 decades, they have developed interest in the new emerging nicotine and tobacco products. And as you know, that they include electronic cigarettes, they include HTPs, that is heated tobacco products, snus, and dissolvable tobacco products that may be lozenges or thin strips that melt in the mouth. And the most common products used are gummies and nicotine pouches by the adolescents. And the companies, they have referred them to as next generation products, but we call them as new emerging nicotine tobacco products. Proliferation of the NENTPs that threatens to years of progress that has been made towards ending tobacco use. So these are some kinds of these new emerging products. So e-cigarettes, nicotine pouches, HTPs, the nicotine gummies, then e-cigarettes, they now come as toy pods also, and they are available mostly online. Then snus is available, nicotine hand gels, then dissolvable nicotine products are also there. So you see that the global e-cigarette and vape market that has increased in 2000, that is likely to increase between 2023 to 2032 by product. So you can see that how much increase is there as per the volumes and as per the amount in $1 billion. So it is likely to increase from 25.5 to 26.2 in 2032. So the key players, they are Views. The market share is 29%. Bar, that is the disposable e-cigarettes, they are 24%, and the blue is 15%, 14% is June, and others they 11%. So despite increasing investment in the NENTPs, the core of the global tobacco industry's business remains unchanged. That is, they continue to produce these tobacco products. The new products, they form a very small proportion of their revenue. The maximum profit earned by these companies through cigarette market has started to shrink from 2012 onwards, and the sales growth significantly weakened. So with the subdued sales environment continuing through to 2015, estimates have shown that a protracted reduction in the global smoking rate from 33% in 2000 to 22.3% in 22. So that is the reason that they are now promoting their new emerging products. The sales growth turned negative in June 22 and looks to have potentially reached a bottom at the start of the 2023. So the NENTPs, they're often publicly linked to tobacco companies' harm reduction strategies, as told by Dr. Stan also, and labeled reduced risk or modified risk products, though they are, if they are producing some risk, so you can't call them as reduced risk or modified risk products, or we can't promote them as harm reduction strategies. WHO Secretariat has urged the governments to remain vigilant about these. The NENTPs, they are creating another layer of interference by the tobacco industry and the related industries. And the most serious barrier to progress in implementing the WHO FCTC. So this is a great barrier for the progress of FCTC. The transnational tobacco products, they often market themselves as new companies. They may have been developing and marketing version of these products for decades. Still, they market themselves as new companies. And TTC's interest in Swedish style snus that began in 2002 with more recent investments in tobacco leaf-free nicotine pouches. So all TTCs now have interest in NENTPs, and electronic cigarettes have been acquired and developed by tobacco companies since 2012. And HTPs, the renewed interest has been there in HTPs from tobacco companies since 2010. Some tobacco companies, they have also invested in therapeutic products such as nicotine lozenges, gum and inhalers. They are the nicotine replacement therapies. So you can see that all companies, they are producing electronic cigarettes, heated tobacco products, snus, and nicotine pouches. So I'll talk only about the maybe electronic cigarettes. The Philip Morris, they are producing electronic cigarettes by the name of Viva. Then British American Tobacco, that is promoting the product as Views. Then Imperial Brands that produces Zonex, and the Japan Tobacco International that produces Logic. The Philip Morris that is very strongly promoting their HTP as IQS. So all TTCs, they have now interest in any NTPs, as I already told you, that by buying other tobacco companies, the transnational tobacco companies, they have added these newer products to their portfolio. When BAT bought Reynolds American, American is inherited the e-cigarette views also along with that. So Atria that gains snus products, PMI brought Swedish company AG Snus in 2021. So the establishment of licensing agreements with other tobacco companies such as PMI's distribution deals with Altria and South Korean company KT&G. The marketing of products owned by independent companies under license, for example, BAT's early investment in nicotine inhaler Vogue from the kind consumer. The development of their own products in-house, for example, PMI's HTP, IQS, that is a very popular brand. Then I must talk about the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. Now, it has been promoted by the Philip Morris International PMI, and now it has been rebranded in this month as Global Action to End Smoking. So it funds harm reduction, farmers' livelihood, and industry transformation. PMI's commercial goal is not to stop people, mainly youth, using tobacco altogether, but to ensure they continue to buy its products, including IQOS. They have continued to produce the Marlboro brand, which is quite famous tobacco product of the cigarettes. WHO says that we must not partner with the FSFW, that is the Foundation for Smoke-Free World. Government should not partner with the foundation, and the public health community should follow this lead. The union says that they have denounced PMI launch of FSFW as $1 billion bribe of the tobacco company. Hopes will secure it a seat at the table with the public health policymakers around the world. So they just want to make themselves popular, and they want to be on the side of the harm reduction and even tobacco cessation. So Johns Hopkins University that says that along with the 16 other school of public health, our schools are not accepting funding from or pursuing work with this foundation. So how to counter influence from the foundation from smoke-free world? So stop the Bloom. It has been initiated by the Bloomberg philanthropists that stop urged organizations funded by FSFW to return the funding, and they called for WHO executive board to reject partnership requested by FSFW. And STOP has also worked with advocates in countries to boycott FSFW's smoke-free dialogue. Even in Turkey and Thailand, that has been cancelled. STOP published a commentary on Lancet based on analysis of the FSFW's 2018 tax return and rejected its claim of independence. So, and the key takeaways from my presentation are that any NTPs, they include e-cigarettes, HTPs, snus, dissolvable tobacco products, nicotine pouches. Nicotine gummies are among the most popular oral nicotine products used by adolescents, along with the nicotine pouches. Then global e-cigarette and vape market that is likely to increase from 2023 to 2032 by $1 billion, 25.5 to 62.2. So that is quite a lot. To secure the industry's longer-term future, TTCs have invested in developed and marketed various NTPs. The new emerging nicotine and tobacco products are creating another layer of interference by tobacco industry and the related industries. All transnational tobacco products now have interest in NTPs by buying other tobacco companies. The TTCs have added these new products to their portfolio. So I think the recording will be shared with you all. So for further readings, I have shared some papers with you. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And we have new insights about the interference of the nicotine tobacco products. Next, I would like to invite Professor Glantz to moderate our following question and answer session. Professor Glantz, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm looking at the chat and don't see any more questions. So please, if you have a question, you can just I think there's unmute yourself and ask it rather than having to have these intermediate steps. I'd just like to offer one comment on the previous presentation, which I think made several very important points related to the fact that the tobacco companies are using these new products to expand the market and hold on to customers. And the one correction I would offer, though, we went into the tobacco industry documents some years ago and found that Philip Morris had actually developed a functioning e-cigarette by about 1994. And BAT was also working on one. And the reasons that they developed these products, and they also were developing heated tobacco products, goes back to marketing research they did in the late 1980s. So this is like 40 years ago. And what they found was that smokers, that all of the work that the public health community had done over the years was really beginning to get quite a lot of purchase with smokers, and a lot of health concerned smokers were actually quitting smoking. And these new products, or they were new at the time, 40 years ago, the heated products, the e-cigarettes, the pouches, were all developed basically to hold on to customers.
Yeah.
And they were not developed to help people quit smoking.
Yeah.
They were not developed for harm reduction. They were developed to try to maintain the market. And if you just look at the last presentation and also Mark's and the earlier presentations, you can see that's exactly what they've been accomplishing. That's the bad news. The good news, as several speakers have pointed out, though, is the global efforts stimulated by the FCTC are really working, and we are slow, despite all of the industry's power, we are slowly pushing down tobacco use, and we just need to keep doing it. So I still don't see any more. Oh, I guess I do see a question now. What are your comments? It's not quite clear who you is regarding a ban on India on research on e-cigarettes by, and I don't know what DGHS is. So could Dr. Jagadish Kogadar, who asked the question in chat, maybe elaborate? Unmute yourself and elaborate the question, and then the speaker or the Director of General Health Services.
Yeah.
So maybe you could elaborate your question, though, and then people can comment on it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, within the last few months, we have received 2 circulars in all the medical colleges. I'm a professor at the medical college in Goa, and we were planning to do research on the use of e-cigarettes in the state of Goa, because we are a state which is primarily known for tourism, and we find a lot of youngsters are falling prey to e-cigarettes, although it is officially banned in the country.
Yeah.
We were completely startled when we received an official circular from the Director General of Health Services that we should not do any research on e-cigarettes because it is banned in India. Thereafter, based on the DGHS, the National Medical Commission sent another circular to all of us at the medical colleges not to undertake research on e-cigarettes. So immediately the topics that we had selected for study in Goa, we had to drop. What are your comments? Is it the right way?
Yeah, Dr. Stan, I think you can comment upon this issue.
Okay, well, I'm happy to comment on it, although I think it would be best to hear from the other people in India. I think that's really stupid. While India did the right thing in banning these products, I think that, as you pointed out, they are still there. And collecting information on who's using them, collecting information on how the industry is getting around the ban, and also health effects research still remains very important. So I would hope that the people in India could develop a protocol that would allow research to continue. This is very similar to actually the situation we have regarding marijuana here in the United States, where it's even though it's widely used, it's very, very difficult. I won't go into the details, but it's very, very difficult to actually conduct research on it, and that actually has the effect of benefiting the industry. So Mark Paris-Gangola wanted to comment, and since he's helps fund research, I think we should hear from him. And then A. Pandley also commented. So let's hear from Mark and then Dr. Pandley.
Great.
So Mark.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to what when you said that. Yeah, I think there are examples, as mentioned, where funding agencies have supported research of using products that are not legally on the market, and that is certainly we have done that with other types of tobacco products and marijuana and other products, and I think that is important because even if the product is not legally sold, people are using it, and we need to understand the effects on health, and the only way to do that is through research. So I think there are examples of ways to do that under sort of with some restrictions, so so that the research can be monitored. But I think to ban that research altogether is a mistake.
And then Dr. Pandy, do you want to say anything?
Thanks, Ismail. No, that's just an observation. We have been noticing, and I'm sure the colleague based in India, they can give more insight about this, but we have been experiencing that how industry is funding research to push forward their narrative, how e-cigarette is useful as a harm reduction device, not just in India but across. I think that is the context might be behind this circular to supervise and restrict such funded research, but I still believe that the point Dr. Jagdish shared, if somebody wants to do a research to just see the prevalence, because it's very well fall within the purview of compliance survey of the act which has banned e-cigarette. So that kind of a survey should be still possible.
Yeah, Dr. Pandey, in fact, actually the prevalence surveys, they are already been undertaken. And I don't think there's ban on such surveys. But I agree with you that because of the tobacco industry interference or funding by the FSFW kind of organizations, so Government of India thought that the researchers, they may be funded and they want to act against the ban. Maybe that is the reason that MHW has banned such researches. And they may not be following proper protocols, and maybe the sample size may also be less. But I think the primary reason is that organizations like FSFW, they don't interfere with these products, or the promotion of the products.
Well, I think people have raised two different issues. One is industry-funded research, and that should be prohibited because there's a huge literature showing that industry-funded research is biased and it's designed to basically support the industry's position. But I think that independent research that doesn't involve the industry, both in terms of use patterns, promotion, and also health effects of these products, is important. And I mean, the union is sponsoring this webinar. The union is an advocacy group, and I think that the union and other health advocates need to work with the government to come up with a set of reasonable rules, as Mark suggested, that would allow independent research to continue and inform policy making and health decision making. But you don't want the industry funding it. It's just there's a huge literature showing that industry-funded research is not really unbiased research. It's serving the industry's economic and political needs.
So, Garima, can we take any more comments, or should we continue with Dr. Sonu's presentation?
I think we should go on to the next presentation.
Oh, okay.
I request Dr. Pinpin to please introduce Dr. Sonu.
I think Pinpin may not be on it.
Okay. I would like to make a brief introduction of Professor Dr. Sonu. He is person of the control section of union, and he's a recipient of various awards, including the Young Researchers awarded by the IAPSI Foundation, Harris Audit Award, a lot of award, and he is leading the Empower Research Group of the Union, a joint associate professor in the School of the Medicine Faculty of the Asian Health Science in the University of the Limerick, Ireland. Professor Sonu, please. And
thank you, Pinpin. Thank you for your generous introduction. And first of all, I must apologize. I could not join early because of some technical glitches. But I'm really happy to see that I'm still on and my presentation is still there. And thank you, first of all, Stan and Mark, for making to this webinar. It's really useful that when Tobacco Control Section is conducting such webinars and such advocacy workshops and webinars, so the presence of people from across makes quite a difference. And that's why we thought of conducting such webinars from tobacco control sections on regular basis. And we thought of conducting this webinar commemorating the WHO World No Tobacco Day. So I will go directly to the presentation on what India has done on protecting youth from tobacco industry interference. So Garima, can you display the presentation if it is there?
Sure. I'll be sharing my slide screen and yeah, just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So, so directly going to the first slide. So we can see from this slide for people who are not from tobacco control fraternity in India and also the people from international arena, that India has done quite well in protecting youth in terms of various indicators. And one of the major indicator is Global Youth Tobacco Survey, which was done in 2019. The last survey was done way back in 2009-10, and there it was seen that the global youth prevalence of tobacco use were around 13%. But then it reduced to 42% in 2019, and it came to around 8%. And you can see from various indicators like initiation of tobacco use of smokeless tobacco product, and even smoking tobacco products. So they have reduced quite a lot between 2009-10 and 2019. So 42% is a good decline in tobacco use among youth. So let us now discuss what measures have been done over last few years by Government of India and other stakeholders in tobacco control. This was about the one important thing which India has done is release of this Tobacco-Free Education India guidelines, which was in 2019. So it's only 3 years back when India has stringent the Tobacco Control Act, that is FOTPA, by release of this Tobacco-Free Education Institution guidelines, and they are collaborating with the Ministry of Education in following this guidelines stringently. And if we see that this sign on the right-hand side, that Tobacco-Free Education Institute, that need to be displayed in every institute which follows these indicators, which I'll be telling you in the next slide. And down there, this tobacco-free area, this is the mandatory sign by our COTPA, Cigarette and Other Tobacco Product Act. So these two signs are mandatory for an institution or educational institution to be displayed and to make tobacco free. So let us see the indicators which they have used, Government of India has used. Yes, next slide, yeah. So if you see, these are the list of 9 indicators which are based on the self-evaluation scorecard by any educational institute. Like, for example, they have to display the tobacco-free area signage inside the premises of educational institution that I have already shown you. Then the display of tobacco-free education institution signage outside on the boundary of the institute. So again, I have shown that. There should be no evidence of use of tobacco products inside the premises. So there should not be any selling, or there should not be BD butts, or there should not be any discarded pouches, or spitting spots should be visible within the institution. And there should be sufficient awareness materials on harms of tobacco displayed in the premises. And organizations should have at least one tobacco control activity during last 6 months. So they should be conducting some activities for that. And also there should be tobacco monitors should be there. It can be one, it can be more, which should see whether the things are going on well or not. And their name, designation, contact number should be mentioned on the signages I have mentioned above. And there should be inclusion of no tobacco use norm in the code of conduct guidelines. So there should be a guidelines which should be there with the institution. And then there should be marking of 100 area from outer boundary. So there should be now I will tell you in the subsequent slide that there is a yellow line concept in India. Some people say pink line, but they mark a yellow line around 100 yards of the institution, and within that 100-yard line, nobody can use tobacco. And then no shop selling tobacco products within 100 yards of education institution. So these are the 9 criteria which have to be done mandatorily by an education institution, and they have to give undertaking that they have done that on the regular basis to the Ministry of Education, and then they send it to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So this is the thing which had made a difference, although it was the latest development. Next slide, Karim.
Just a minute.
Garima, can you? Yeah. Yeah. So we can see this one of the jurisdiction. Is just one example of one jurisdiction where the Kashmir Valley has displayed that Valley schools have signages prevailing institution of tobacco use, and even this Chandigarh Education Department Secretary issue orders on strict ban of tobacco items near schools. So these are some of the headings in the news lines which suggest that these orders are being implemented to the letter and spirit in many of the institutes. Now, the second thing is about our Cigarette and Other Tobacco Product Act 2003. So this was our law. So under our law, we have 2 sections, section 6A and 6B. So under 6A, a person cannot sell or offer to sell or permit the sale of cigarette or any other tobacco product to any person who is under 18 years of age. So that is under law. So you can't sell a person who is under 18 years. So they have to verify. And under section B, the same signage which I have talked about. So their signage should be displayed within an area of 100 yards from any education institution. So these 2 things are being there, and to some extent they are being implemented, but yes, there are scope of further extending of that implementation. And I would just like to reiterate the section 6A. There is another act which many of us might not be aware about, is about the Juvenile Justice Act. The Juvenile Justice Act is an act where the government has given a strict punishment to any person who offers to sell any hazardous chemicals, which include tobacco products or electronic cigarettes, to any person who is less than 18 years. And if the person is found selling that tobacco products or any harmful, especially the electronic cigarettes, to the a person who is less than 18 years, so that person can be imprisoned for 7 years. For 7 years, and can have a fine of 1 lakh Indian rupees. So that's a huge punishment, and many have been prosecuted under that Juvenile Justice Act. So this act was implemented in many states, and the imprisonment has been done. And I remember of Punjab when Dr. Rakesh Gupta was the nodal officer of Punjab. So then 3 or 4 punishments were there under the Juvenile Justice Act. Now these are another few stories which says that government challans the 200,000 Indian national rupees for tobacco related offences, and down there is a so much lakh, 3.6 lakh shops, so 0.36 million shops penalized since 2021 for selling tobacco near school. So this was another story from at the sub-regional levels. So these are some of the things which says that, yes, I was talking about this yellow line concept. So you can see this yellow line. So this is being drawn around education institution. The entire education institution, 100 yards boundary. So around the boundary of, if we just measure 100 yards from the school boundary, they draw this line. And within this line, they can't sell tobacco products. So this is being implemented in almost every state in our country. So you can see this again, the health officials to start online campaigns in the school. So this is a campaign of Chandigarh. So they write the tobacco-free zone. So in that, within 100 yards, they can't, because it has been seen in various studies that if you sell, there is increased accessibility of tobacco products, then the kids are likely to take tobacco products. Now, this is one of the things which I want to reiterate about the WHO FCTC Article 5.3 policy. So India has developed their own code of conduct for public officials in compliance to Article 5.3. But yes, there is a scope of improvement in this, because the implementation is not there to that extent in the letter of spirit. But they are trying to improve that, because now code of conduct is there. Article 5.3 is being implemented in 17 states of our country as well, and they are following it. But now we are in the process of whole of the government approach, where not only health department, but other departments should also follow the Article 5.3 policy. And I just want to reiterate here that there has been a recent development, because previously our tobacco control department, our tobacco control is being led primarily by the non-governmental organizations, because they are doing quite a, but now the academic institution have joined the hand, and we have developed a consortium of medical colleges in India, consortium of All India Institute of Medical Sciences in India, where the activities are galvanized to a larger extent. And this is the conflict of interest declaration on our resource center for tobacco control. We are running a resource center for tobacco control in India, where we put all the information and collate all the necessary information which are required for people to see. And we have a audience of around 7 lakh right now, 0.7 million right now, who are regularly seeing this information. And you can see now the conflict of interest declaration on almost all the Institute of National Excellences in India. That is All India Institute of Medical Sciences, because we have made a consortium. Their directors are very well attached to us, and now they are doing activities to a greater extent. So I think that is all from my end. My really apologies for making this session late, but I hope that this session was quite meaningful for the audience who have seen that. So thank you, Garima.
Thank you, Dr. Sonu, for your presentation and sharing insights from the efforts that are being undertaken in India. Over to you, Pinpin.
Thank you, Garima. And I would like to invite Professor Glantz again to give us a concluding remarks of this session. Dr. Glantz, please.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that the previous presentation was very impressive. You know, again, showing that while we've been talking about the problems that the industry causes, it shows that progress is possible. The one thing I would add, which I think is a place where India is really leading the world, is India's policies on promotion of tobacco through entertainment media. India has passed probably the strongest rules limiting smoking in motion pictures. Any film which has tobacco use in it has to have an anti-smoking ad at the beginning of the film and at the intermission that was produced by the Ministry of Health. And there's actually a message that appears on screen when people are using tobacco. This was a fight. I mean, have been involved in it. It went on for years, but through the leadership of the NGO community in India and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they finally got these rules put in place. And there have been several evaluations done. We worked on one of them, but there are many that have shown that this has materially impacted the amount of tobacco use that appears in films. And that's a hugely important stimulus for youth tobacco use. I believe last year these rules were extended to streaming media. It's the first place in the world that anybody's done that. And I think that the activities that India has taken in this area of smoking in entertainment media and other tobacco use in entertainment media are really reverberating around the world and showing tremendous leadership. And so that's you know, just a comment on the previous talk. I think my one comment on the overall presentations has been that they've been very, very good, that they've outlined, as I said in the beginning, how the industry is evolving to try to expand and maintain its markets. But also, I think that you've seen evidence that individuals and organizations and governments are actively engaged with this problem and actually making a difference and reducing overall tobacco use. So the message I take from this presentation is one of encouragement, and the people need to just keep working on it. I guess the one other thing in the chat, someone said, you know, that it all comes down to political will, and that I think that's absolutely true. And I think if you look at the at the experience in India and the progress that you just heard documented, it shows that through concerted efforts of the non-governmental agencies like the union, working with support of politicians and people in government, that progress is possible. And it's very encouraging. So thank you for the opportunity to participate in this session, and I'll turn it back to the chair or the Dr. Pin.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Stan, for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And you have shared a lot of ideas, enlightening ideas and experience with us. Thank you so much. At last, on behalf of the Tobacco Control Section of the Union, I would like to express our sincere thanks to our chairs, speakers, moderators, for sharing your experience, insights, and vision in tobacco control. This is a wonderful webinar, and we cherish the opportunity of learning from the great experts of tobacco control. The presentation and discussion will help the participants to have in-depth understanding of the interference of tobacco industry so as to achieve better solutions to protect our children. Again, many thanks to our chairs and speakers for your great contribution today. We would also like to thank all the participants today. Your attending, your question, discussion make today's webinar as a global interactive platform of tobacco control. Thanks for your efforts in tobacco control, and thanks for your support to the tobacco control section of the Union. Each step in tobacco control process in every country is not easy. A lot of efforts have to be made in research, in advocating, in policy making, and effort enforcement, in education, and also fighting against the tobacco industry. We hope through such kind of webinar, we can share our thoughts, support each other, so as to move forward to a smoke-free world. Happy World Non-Tobacco Day, and hope in the near future, not so distant future, and this day is no more special because every day in the world there is no tobacco. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pinpin,
Sure.
and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you all
Thank
of
you
you.
for your presentation.
Thank you.